And we'll get started. Hi, everybody. My name is Lelena Ravari, and I'm the North American Marketing Manager for Mom Cozy. And we are a global maternity brand that support now 4.5 million moms around the world in 60 plus countries and regions. It's remarkable. And our focus is really to help you, starting at pregnancy through early motherhood. I'm sure some of you may have experienced our wearable breast pumps. That's really our staple. But we have a full line of products from that pregnancy pillow, which is going to become your best friend if you haven't started using one. Yeah, she has a Mom Cozy pump. Through early motherhood, we have baby care items. We have a variety of things here. And our goal is just to really make life easier for you and more comfortable for you. So thank you for joining us. Some important information, just housekeeping. We do have an online community. Please join us. Yes, we are recording. Please join us today. Emily hops on Wednesdays, and she focuses on answering any of your questions. And we have a bunch of content and all the fun stuff and everything like that. So I'm going to turn it over to Emily to introduce herself and get started.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to so many of you who have been here before. If it's your first webinar, welcome. And as I said, we'll get you the recordings. But before I dive into teaching, I just want to reintroduce myself, especially for those of you who are new. My name is Emily Silver. I'm a family nurse practitioner, an IBCLC, and a mom to 3 girls. I think that's really important to know because, well, they're 9, 7, and 2.5. And every baby is different, and I feel like I use them all the time when I'm teaching, especially when it comes to feeding and my own feeding journeys with them. I was a labor and delivery nurse for most of my career, which I absolutely loved. And now today I educate and support parents locally here in Boston. That's where I'm located, but we take care of parents all over the country and in other countries as well through our online platform, which I'm going to tell you more about at the end. Before we get started though, on just like the topic for today and me teaching and giving you content, what I think is important for you all to know about NAPS is that everyone who works here at NAPS is a registered nurse or a nurse practitioner or a medical professional. So in our platform, we have a doctor of physical therapy, a doctor of occupational therapy, a mental health counselor. And so we are bringing together medical professionals into one place for parents. Right? I'm sure you all feel this. You have to go here for your classes, but here for sleep and here for feeding and this doctor for that. And it feels like you're piecemealing like your parenting journey together. So you want everybody in one place, providers that you can trust that are always teaching and giving education that's backed by research or not. We'll tell you, there's no research on that. And we're moms, we're parents just like you. So we're always going to throw in some real life parenting advice as well. And I hope you'll really feel that vibe from me today. I'm guessing some of you like my style since you came back again from our previous webinars, but we just want to give you really great information so that you can make decisions that is best for you and your family. So we're talking about pumping and going back to work today, which is one of my favorite classes to teach. I'm just doing a little refresher on like maintaining and increasing milk supply. This came from our first class in the series, which is that when you are a breastfeeding or a pumping mom, and we talked about bringing your milk supply in and how that looks in that journey. But typically speaking, as you bring your milk in these early weeks or early months rather, about like 6 to 8 weeks out is oftentimes when moms will say to me, I feel like I'm kind of like regulated. I don't feel as full. I still have milk, but it's not, so copious as before. There is a sense where your body starts to regulate to meet your baby's supply and demand. And as we get going in this journey with breastfeeding and pumping and being back to work, we're often incorporating other feeding methods, right? Like pumping and giving bottles. And there are scenarios where I work with parents, and there's a whole other topic on combo feeding, which is a class for another day. But there are scenarios where my moms start to navigate which feeds they're going to keep, like which feeds during the day will be breastfeeding sessions, which ones might be pumping sessions, and sometimes a feed where they might not pump at all and they're actually just giving a bottle. Throughout the journey of breastfeeding and pumping, we really can feel some highs and lows. And I'm sure some of you may be already feeling that if you're a little bit further out, meaning that you finally bring your milk in, and we have these periods where we feel like a little bit of a dip in our milk supply. Tell me in the chat, actually, if you have experienced this. You get your first period back. You go back to work. Your baby is sick or they're teething. Something is stressful or a big life event happens, right? It feels like there can be these highs and lows in this journey. And that, yes, stress, everybody says stress, right, is a big one. And so I just want to call out that it's okay. We're going to take this big, deep breath. This is part of the journey. There are always little things that we can do, like as a lactation consultant, to work with you to try to help to tell your body, like, hey, let's get back on track again. We want to make more milk, or we might want to boost milk supply. And that goes back to this thought process. It's not a thought process, like breastfeeding and pumping being supply and demand, right? It's a fact, really. And this is more from our first session together, right? So the more we breastfeed or the more we pump, ultimately the more we'll produce. And so why am I bringing this up now today in our pumping and going back to work workshop? Truly because the biggest stressor that I face every day and every week with my moms around going back to work is stress. Physical separation from your baby, all of a sudden not being with them anymore and needing to put in pumping sessions. And if I had $1 for every time a mom came to me and said, Emily, I am pumping my ass off when I'm back at work, but I am not making exactly what my baby's taking back at home with their provider in a bottle, that happens all the time. And so when we go back to work, and I see you all telling me out there, right there, it's stressful. It's a change. We grew this baby. We were with them on leave. We were with them all the time. And all of a sudden we are having physical separation. And in fact, there's research to support that physical separation as a breastfeeding mom can impact your supply, physical separation from your baby. And then we layer in stress and like the way our bodies manage stress, it can impact the hormones that are circulating for our milk supply in a not so great way. And I'm not trying to like scare anybody or make you like dread going back to work. I just want to call it out to normalize it. I want to normalize it so that if this happens to you, you can take that deep breath and say, oh, Emily told me that this might happen. And this is a good reason to reach out to NAPS or my local lactation consultant to make a plan so that I can get through this time and I can get through this transition and I can maintain my milk supply. Maybe I want to find areas where I want to work on it. So really I want to just call that out. Okay. We're going to decrease the levels of stress here. Now, let's just talk. I'm going to get into the logistics, like the things that you need and like giving your baby a bottle and storing milk, all the logistics that I know you want to know about as you go back to work. But before I want to do that, I want to talk about a sample schedule. You can tell everyone in the chat, if you're going back to work, you likely have, or you're forming a plan for childcare. That may look like a daycare, an au pair, a nanny, or a babysitter. It could be family. Oh, you're so lucky if you have family or like a friend that can help you. But somebody's going to, or your partner maybe, right? Maybe now they get to leave, but somebody's going to be taking care of your baby. And that is really, really hard because it's a very big change because you've been with them all the time. And so when we're getting ready to go back to work, one of the things I'd love for you all to do, and you can do it today, is to start to think about your baby and what you've learned about them in this time with them as it relates to their schedule, so you can help provide your caregivers with some guidance. And you'll see, I'm going to talk through my schedule here. I made this myself. I like a schedule with flexibility, right? So I think about my 3 girls and my leaves with them. I was with them every day for 13 weeks before I went back to work. I knew everything about them. When they cried, oh, that's a tired cry. And I know how to get them in just that tight swaddle and right where to burp them to get that good burp, right? You really start to get them down. Your providers and your caregivers, because I know you're all going to choose amazing people that you trust to help you, they're going to need time to find their way too. And what I don't want you to do is to micromanage them, because then it causes stress for them too. Meaning, my baby eats every morning at 9 a.m. She always takes 5 ounces. She needs to be in her crib by 10:15 for the nap. The nap has to be 2 hours long. If the schedule that you leave is rigid, the caregivers start to get a little stressed. And then in that first week or two with your baby, when it's not right on your schedule, that stresses them out. Then they might be afraid to tell you. They feel some kind of pressure. They need guidance to find their way with your baby. So how do we give this to them? And you can like write this down on a piece of paper. If I was going to leave a schedule for my nanny in those early weeks when she first starts with me, I'm going to say to her, and my youngest daughter is Eloise. So let's use Eloise as an example. Eloise wakes up for the day around 6:30 to 7:15 a.m. Okay. She eats about every 2.5 to 3 hours. Okay. And then I'm going to take it a step further. She eats about 4 to 6 ounces when I feed her. Eloise is able to stay awake and be happy for about 1 to 2 hours. And then she's going to get tired. And when I put her down for a nap, she's usually sleeps anywhere from 1 to 2 hours. And I would write that schedule out, giving ranges, because it helps that childcare provider find their way. When I think about a magic number, and I'm not going to go too far on this, but when I teach parents about sleep inside of our membership platform, one of the biggest things that I talk about around going back to work is the magic number. You can do it for your baby right now. The magic number is the amount of sleep your baby needs in 24 hours to be happy and functional, right? So when I think about Eloise, when she was younger, let's call her, 4 months old, she would go to bed around 7 p.m. and sleep till 6 a.m. That's 11 hours, right? And she would take 3 naps during the day. Let's call them each an hour to make the math easy here. So 3 hours during the day. So 11, 12, 13, 14. That's 14 hours of sleep that on a great day, Eloise gets when she's with me. So think about what's your baby's magic number, like that when you calculate all that really great sleep on a great day. Because then when you start, let's use daycare as an example. And daycare says to you, she had a tough time napping because it's her first week there, right? She only napped, 3 times, half an hour each. You're thinking like, oh, wow, we're an hour and a half short of that magic number tonight. And so you're going to take control of the areas where you can, which is that you're going to get that baby to bed earlier that night to make up for that lost time. So think about your magic number. And as you think about this transition back, I want you to write out a sample schedule for your baby with ranges, just like this. Okay, logistical things here. And I put this in here because I'm going to tell you right now, when I had my second daughter, Madeline, I was working as a nurse practitioner. And I can't even tell you how many times I drove to the office to see patients all day and would forget the power cord for my pump. Or I would get to work and I would have all my pumping supplies, power cord, everything that I needed. And I would go to pump and I would have forgotten bags to dump my milk in. Instead of all this milk that I pumped and nowhere to put it, right? And so, when you're tired and you're not functioning on a lot of sleep and you have to get the baby out and yourself out, you're packing a lot of stuff. Like you're likely going to have this bag for your baby and a bag for yourself. Obviously, my biggest advice, which will probably not be a surprise here, is to get all of your stuff together the night before. Because then in the morning, when you're trying to get up, breastfeed, pump, get your baby ready, and get yourself dressed and out the door, all these other little things are just done. Meaning your work bag is packed, your pump bag is packed, the diaper bag is packed. We're going to talk about making bottles, like defrosting breast milk. Everything's just done. And you're not looking for like the bits and the pieces and the your tubing for your pump, things like that. It's all packed and ready to go. And then you're less likely to forget something. You can take it a step further. And in your pump bag and in your diaper bag, you can leave a tiny little checklist similar to this, so that in the morning right before you go, you can have a quick eyeball like, okay, do I have my tubing? Do I have my pump? Do I have my power source? Do I have my milk collection? Do I have all my things? So that you don't forget something. Because when you're back at work, like I said, and I forgot the tubing or the power cord, well, that was a major bummer for me during my work day. So there's going to probably be more that you might want to put on your own list, but we need our diapers and wipes packed for baby, ointments like Aquaphor or butt paste. If it's in the summertime, sunscreen, extra sets of clothes, Maybe you need a sound machine. Maybe you need to be bringing bottles where you're going. Maybe somebody's coming to you. Pacifiers, bibs, sippy cups. Like there's a lot going into that diaper bag. When I think about mom, we're having our pump bag with our pumping stuff. You also will want a really good cooler for your breast milk to transport it back and forth. You may be using formula. We can talk about this. You may need to consider what you're packing for yourself for food. We're always really good at packing up stuff for the baby. Their bottles, their solid foods, like their lunches. We need to make sure we're packing stuff for ourselves as well, meaning like snacks, lunches, water, so you're taking care of yourself throughout the day. And then you'll think about what you need, like logistically wise for a stroller. So start to think about your list and actually write them out. What do you need for baby? What do you need for yourself? And I know it might feel simple as you're doing it, but write it out there, because in the morning when you're in a pinch and you're tired and you're trying to get out the door, you're going to want to reference these lists. Okay, so I want to talk about introducing a bottle, because if you're getting ready to go back to work, you're a breastfeeding mom, you're going to be away from your baby, so you're going to need to pump when you're not with your baby to replace those feeds. And that means if you're not with your baby and you're physically separated, they're going to need to get a bottle, right? Unless, which would be so lovely, you have a job where you're working from home and you can come out to breastfeed, or you have a job with a daycare on site and you can leave to breastfeed. Sometimes that is something that my clients can put in the mix in their day, and that's wonderful. But let's talk about introducing a bottle, especially if you're out there and you're expecting a baby or you're home in those early newborn weeks. The American Academy of Pediatrics recommends introducing a bottle once good breastfeeding has been established. And I brought this up in a prior webinar, and I said in that prior webinar, I love this because it's flexible. Because when you're ready to give your baby a bottle, might look very different from the person in the chat right above you on this webinar. Everybody's feeding journey will be a little bit different. And so breastfeeding being really well established, you know, and I mentioned this before, so I don't want to go into it too deep. You can watch the prior webinar, but is your milk in? Do you understand how to latch your baby? Can you hear them swallowing? Are we heading in the right direction on the breastfeeding journey? Some parents will have to introduce a bottle sooner for other reasons, which we also talked about in those prior classes. And that's okay too. But when we think about introducing a bottle, like a parent just comes to me and says, Emily, when should I introduce a bottle? I'll say to them, okay, like, how are you feeling on your journey? Is your milk in? Is your baby latching? Are they gaining weight? Maybe you gave a bottle for other reasons. Otherwise, I try to get parents to introduce a bottle. This says around 2 to 3 weeks of age. You're going to find a lot of different written recommendations out there. Sometimes you'll hear by 4 weeks of age. I was watching an IBCLC who I love earlier this morning on her page, and her page said by 5 weeks of age. There isn't actually a written rule. After working for 15 years with moms here at NAPS, I feel a good sweet spot for introducing a bottle to your baby is around 4 weeks of age. And that doesn't mean that you have to give a bottle every day. You could do it every day if you wanted to. You could do it 2 or 3 times a week, but it's basically a place where you're usually feeling like you're in a good place with breastfeeding, like you're cruising on that journey. You're mentally and emotionally able to wrap your head around like, okay, maybe I feel like I could take my pump out and learn how to use it and pump now. I'm not as tired as before, or I feel like I got good at breastfeeding so I can look at the pump. Or maybe you're in a place where you're like, I'd actually like help from my family or friends or my partner. But I find 4 weeks is a really great sweet spot, because I do want to let you know, I know not all of you will want to do a bottle that early, and that's okay if you don't want to do that. But on the opposite end of the spectrum, I work with many, many babies who are 3 months or 4 months out, and they've never received a bottle because they've been breastfeeding and it's been going so well. But now that parent needs them to take a bottle, they have to go back to work, or they have a wedding, or they have a trip, and that baby won't take a bottle. That won't be everybody's case, but it is very common where the baby might not take a bottle because they don't know how to do it, and they much prefer to breastfeed. So we're looking, like in anything with parenting, just finding that healthy balance that feels good for us as the parent. And so I encourage you to think about that, so that you can have flexibility of a baby that is delighted to breastfeed, but if you did have to step away for the day or go back to work, they're also delighted to take a bottle of breast milk or like however you're feeding your baby from the provider. So think about that for yourself and when that would make sense. But if you're looking for some guidance, I do think around 4 weeks is a great place to get started. Logistics of bottle prep. And we've put up our Instagram account at NAPS is Nurture by NAPS. Actually, if you have your phone, take it out right now. Go on your Instagram and find us, Nurture by NAPS, because part of what I've been doing all month with our partnership with Mom Cozy is putting up really fun content and reels in light of World Breastfeeding Week and into the month now we're talking about it. And I just put one up recently on how to defrost breast milk and how to prepare bottles, so you can check those out. But let's talk about logistics of making bottles for your baby, because you are going to be away from them when you're at work. We want to make sure your baby understands how to take a bottle. If you are out there and you're listening to this and your baby will not take a bottle, I have a resource for you. I'll put it in the chat at the end. I have a course on bottle refusals, resistance and strikes, and how to get your baby to take a bottle. So I just want to flag that. I'll come back to that at the end of the workshop. We want to get it in the routine. What are the logistics of bottle prep? So you're likely starting to save some breast milk. I want to normalize, and I know you see on TikTok and Instagram and social media, women with freezers of breast milk, like freezers upon freezers of milk that they've stored. That's wonderful, and congratulations. There are many moms out there who are living bottle to bottle, feed to feed, or they don't make that much breast milk that they're saving copious amounts of milk. Okay, so that's okay. And I talked about this in the pumping workshop last week, but you are going to get what you get, and you're likely putting it in the fridge, or you're putting it in the freezer and you're saving it. When you go back to work and you're starting to prepare bottles for your caregivers, there's a lot of ways that you can do this. Let's say you have frozen breast milk and you're going to be at work the next day. So you want to prepare your bottles or your bags of breast milk for your childcare providers. What you can do is you can defrost your breast milk before you go to bed. So when I was working and my babies were younger, before I would go to bed, I would pull out like 4 bags of frozen breast milk from my freezer. I would put them in my refrigerator. I would go to bed. And when I would come down in the morning, the milk would be defrosted, just like chicken. And then I would take the milk and I would pour it into bottles for my nanny to use that day. And I would leave her, we're going to talk about how much to leave, but I would make her, 3 bottles for what she needed that day. And I would leave them in the fridge so they were cold. And when she was ready to use them, she could pull them out and heat them up. Some parents, they'll just leave the bags in the fridge and they'll tell the childcare provider, you prepare the bottles as you need them. All right. Some parents don't even pull it out of the freezer. They tell their childcare provider, hey, this is how you defrost milk. When you need it, pull it out of the freezer and make the bottles. If you're pulling out frozen milk on the go and you need it right away, you can run hot water. And this is where you'll see it on our Instagram account. It shows me putting a bag of frozen milk into a bowl of hot water. I'm going to walk away. I come back 5 minutes later, it's starting to melt. Or you can turn your sink on, get the water nice and warm, and you can run that frozen milk right under the water and it melts right in your fingers. Or you can have it in your fridge overnight. You'll find your way of what is easier for you. Some of my moms find it easier to defrost it at night and they make their bottles in the morning. And then maybe they're going off to daycare. So they're putting those pre-made bottles into a cooler and they're bringing it to daycare, and the daycare now has it and they put it in their fridge. If you're using a daycare, I would ask them, how would you like me to bring in the bottles? Some may say, just bring us the bags and we'll make what you need. Some may say, bring us the bottles ready to go. Some may say to you, bring us the 3 bottles that you know we're going to need, but please bring 1 extra bottle or 1 extra bag in case we need it, right? And I know some of you may be using formula, and so you might want to pre-mix that the night before. When you mix a batch of formula, it's good in the fridge for 24 hours. So some people will make a batch of it like lemonade and they'll put it in the fridge. So in the morning, when they're making their bottles, they can pour it. Or if you're mixing breast milk and formula, you can pour it and mix it together. There's so many different ways. I just want you to start to think about what might make sense for you so that when you do go back to work, you know what you want to try. And if it's not working, you can change the plan the next week and try something else different. I think it's really important to teach your caregivers the proper guidelines when it comes to storage of breast milk, when it comes to defrosting breast milk, and when it comes to formula. We're going to talk about storage guidelines. I know we did that in other classes together, but we're going to repeat it again today. just because as a breastfeeding mom who also did pumping, it quite pained me if my breast milk was wasted. So I really taught my caregivers how to know when to pull milk out, how much milk to give my baby without overfeeding them, while also giving them permission, like, hey, if you do really think she's still hungry, I did leave a bag, a couple of extra ounces if you need it. So actually, before I come to my practice day, let's stay on this for one more second. I bet you're all wondering out there, how much to leave in a bottle? Are you? I bet you are. So let's say you're a breastfeeding mom and you're going back to work and you're like, how much should I leave in a bottle for my caregiver? So a breastfed baby takes on average about 1 to 1.5 ounces per hour. Now, a breastfed baby, I don't know how much they're getting when you breastfeed them. They take highs, they take lows, they take dinner, then dessert. Some feeds, they just take it all, and some feeds, they take a little less. They take highs and lows. So when a parent will say to me, I'm going back to work next week, how much should I leave in the bottle? I'll say to them, how often is your baby breastfeeding? And if they tell me, she breastfeeds about every 3 hours. Using that rule of thumb that they're taking about 1 ounce to 1.5 ounces per hour, now I know, okay, well, when that baby breastfeeds, they probably are taking on the low end 3 ounces and on the high end 4.5 ounces. If you have a baby eating every 2 hours, they're probably taking 2 to 3.5 ounces. If you have a baby eating every 4 hours, 4 to 6 ounces. Next week, we're going to talk about sleep. Sleep is so important. It's all connected and it's related to feeds, but eventually babies go to bed earlier and they sleep longer stretches at night and they take in less calories at night. So now they're going to take more during the day. So sometimes a parent will say to me, my baby's eating every 3 hours, but they're eating more than the 3 to 4.5 range. They're eating like 6 ounces in a bottle. And I'll say to them, okay, well, what are they doing at night? And they may say to me, well, they're sleeping through the night, right? And so we've shifted nighttime calories into the daytime. So it's a little bit of trial and error figuring out how much your baby needs, but that's some math to help you think about how much you should leave. And I will say this, babies always take more from a bottle. They always take more from somebody else. So don't shortchange your care providers. Give them the higher end of things as they're finding their way, because we don't want anyone to feel stressed out when it comes to feeding. Okay, let's talk about a practice day. So this might not be possible for everybody out there, but if you have control over when you go back to work and the time that you have leading up to it with your childcare, it's really awesome if you can make some practice days for yourself before you actually go for that first day back at work, just to get into the groove of like what it feels like to wake up a little bit earlier in the morning, what it feels like to breastfeed and get out the door with your bag and your pump. What does it feel like to leave your baby for a block of time and miss a breastfeeding session and actually put your pump on and use it and like pour it into a bag and put it in the cooler and store it? It might sound simple, but practicing these simple steps will help you feel like more confident when it's time to do it and less anxious. And again, less stress, right? I want to lower all of your stress levels as much as I can, because if you're stressed during this time, it's going to impact our milk supply. I want to help you feel really prepared. And so could you have a day where you spend, like, let's say you have childcare providers, family, friends, or a nanny. Can you spend a day together where you actually or a block of time together during the day where they observe you and they're with you and they see what your baby's doing? Then could you set up a day where you spend part of that day apart? You actually, maybe you have nowhere to go. So you got to find somewhere really good to go. Go to the mall, right? Like go do something for yourself, some self-care maybe, or just leave. But you're actually practicing saying goodbye, leaving with your pump, going somewhere, missing a session, pumping, your baby's getting a bottle with the care provider, okay? Now, some people are doing a daycare, so maybe they can't have this practice day with their nanny or their daycare, but could you have a practice day for yourself where a family member or a friend comes over for a few hours so you can practice leaving the house and being apart for a feed? There's different ways we can get creative about doing this, but again, it's practicing making the bottle, packing the bag, leaving and saying goodbye. That's hard to do, right? Being away for a feed so that you can pump, they can get a bottle, and just seeing how that feels, all right? When you are going back to work, if you have control over when you can go back to work, I think it's really awesome if you don't start on a Monday. Can you go back to work on a Wednesday or a Thursday for your first day back? Because it really just it just helps. It makes the week feel so much, it's shorter. You know, you just have this day or two apart of this big change. Then you have the weekend to regroup and you can start again on Monday. Again, not possible for everybody, but something to think about to just ease the blow of this really big change. I mentioned I talk about safe storage guidelines. We did this before. I don't want to beat a dead horse on it. I don't want to stay on this too long, but I think it's really important that you educate your providers on this so that breast milk isn't being wasted, so that we're not using icky, yucky formula. We want to make sure that they understand how to use breast milk and formula, as well as how to clean bottles and pump parts, the things that probably feel really little and easy and simple to you now because you've been there all the time might not feel that way to your providers. So you just want to help them and show them the way. There's a lot of varying guidelines out there on breast milk and how long breast milk is good for. If you look at the CDC here in the United States, you'll hear the rule of 4s. Sometimes you'll see it written as the rule of 5s, but it basically means breast milk is good for up to 4 hours at room temperature, for up to 4 days in the fridge, for about 4 months in the freezer. You might see 555, you could see 666. CDC is 4s. Once you defrost frozen breast milk, you should use that milk within 24 hours. Breast milk that's been defrosted that sits out for long periods of time or in the fridge for days, it starts to lose its flavor and its taste. It might smell a little bit bad. What we worry about, and I said this before in prior classes, is we don't want our babies to get sick. We worry about when you think about our milk, like cow's milk, if it sits out, it gets yucky. It might grow bacteria or pathogens and make us sick. What we know from latest research on breast milk that was left sitting out at extreme temperatures for extreme periods of time, when they studied it and looked at it, it actually didn't grow any bacteria or pathogens in this study that I'm thinking of. So what we know about breast milk is that it is very robust. It's resistant, it's sturdy against bacteria and pathogens. I think it's important for you all to know that as parents. I want to empower you to use some of your own parenting judgment here and common sense, meaning if I left my breast milk in the fridge for 4 days and all of a sudden it's day 5 or day 6 and I found that bag, I'm probably not going to throw that milk out. I'm going to put it in the freezer, okay? And again, you get to decide this of what makes sense for you. If I finish a bottle of fresh breast milk for my daughter and she doesn't finish it, probably going to put that breast milk back in the fridge and use it at the next feed. So because I feel really good about the research that we have on breast milk. So you get to choose what we know through research, what we see in the guidelines. What do you want to do? Formula is different. Formula is synthetic. It's man-made. It does have guidelines on it. You should use it. Once you open a can of formula, it's good for about a month. Depending upon the formula, you need to read your brand and their guidelines. When you prepare it, it usually can stay in the fridge for 24 hours. It can stay out at room temp for about 2 hours. Once you start a feed with a bottle of formula, you want to use it within the hour. So these are just some things on guidelines to get you thinking about it and so that you can educate your family and your providers. I'm pivoting here. I am going to pivot and now talk to you about things that I don't think people are going to talk to you about. I think it's important to think about storing milk and giving your baby bottles and setting up yourself for success with schedules and pump bags and logistics. But I actually want to spend our final time talking about things that I bet you haven't heard about yet, or maybe you have, but we don't talk about them a lot in our culture and our society, which is ways to protect yourself and to take care of yourself as you transition back to work. And that starts with boundaries. And I want you to really think about this stuff today and throughout this weekend. What are boundaries? Because we're going to use boundaries with yourself, your workplace, your caregivers. They're so relevant as a working parent. But let me just explain what I mean by boundaries. Boundaries are brave choices that make you feel comfortable and safe. They're a form of self-advocacy, self-care, self-compassion. When I think about setting boundaries, or when I talk to my moms and my new mom support groups, they're like, oh, I just feel like I'm saying no all the time. I feel like a naggy bee. I feel like no, 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 no. When you're saying no to someone, that can feel really hard when you're putting a boundary in place and you might be saying no to someone or something. It is usually so that you can say yes to yourself for your own emotional, physical, and mental well-being. They're the choice between short-term discomfort or long-term discomfort, meaning when you're back at work, and we're going to talk about being back at work, and something isn't working well for you. Now that you've returned back from work and you're working and you're pumping and you're navigating childcare, you might be avoiding a conversation with your manager because you don't want to have that short-term discomfort, that moment where you have to have that difficult conversation with them of like, hey, this isn't working for me now that I'm back. But you're choosing to live in long-term discomfort of trying to make something work every day that isn't. So we need to think about that, okay? But when we put boundaries in place, they're making our relationships with ourselves, our partners, our nanny, our daycare, our employers, people who we work with, they're making those relationships feel steady and supportive. And I know it feels like you're saying no when you're setting them, but they're actually about telling people what we want and what we need. And they are so, so important as you navigate your transition back to work. They're really hard to do. And people or places or things, like when it feels hard to set a boundary somewhere, it's usually a red flag that that person or that thing needed it. And they're hard because they require us redefining relationships. They come with fear, anxiety, jumping to conclusions. But what I want you to know is when we set boundaries, especially around going back to work, it is not a betrayal of your family, your friends, your partners, your work, your manager. But not setting them to take care of yourself during this time is a betrayal of yourself. And I don't want you to betray yourself to please others. So what do I mean? What does that anything to do with what we're talking about today? As you navigate your transition back to work, I want to get you prepared from a professional standpoint before you go back to your job. It's so amazing if you can do this when you're pregnant or expecting, but a lot of the parents that I work with are doing this during the maternity or paternity leave, or unfortunately they go back to work, they never had these conversations, and now they're trying to redefine the relationship. But in a best case scenario, before you go back to work, or when you're back, maybe you're working right now, okay? What is or isn't working for you right now at work? Or while you're out on leave right now, what did you used to do at work that did work that is not going to work now that you have a baby? Okay? How can you preserve what is working? And where do we need to set boundaries around what isn't working? I'm going to give some examples, okay? So for me, what comes up a lot with my moms is access. But access. Before they had a baby, they could stay late. If an extra meeting got thrown on their work schedule, they would stay for the meeting, okay? Or if they got an email at 7 p.m. or 8 p.m., because the email's right there on their phone, they might quickly reply to their boss and send it, or quickly reply to their team and send it. That might have worked before you had a baby, but that's an example where moms will say to me, ooh, that used to work. That's not going to work anymore. I can't stay past 5 o'clock for extra meetings or because things are running late. I have to leave because I have to pick my kid up at daycare. Daycare closes. Like I have to be there, right? Or this thought of like getting back to emails or text messages in the evening that maybe used to work for parents. Now it doesn't because you're like, I can't do that. I'm trying to make dinner. I have bath. I have bedtime. This is my time, my precious hours with my baby before they go to bed. I want to be present with them. Okay. Again, and it goes to when you're arriving and when you need to leave for these pickups and these drop-offs. So these are a couple of examples to get your brain ticking. What is working? What isn't working? Or what used to work that isn't going to work anymore? And then what boundaries do we need to put in place? So maybe that is, I can't do emails at 9 o'clock at night. Like that's not possible, right? So maybe you're setting up an auto email that says, because people like instant gratification. So someone on your team emails you at 8 o'clock at night, they get a reply back. Hey, I see you. I got your email. I will get back to you by 9 a.m. tomorrow. Okay. Sometimes my moms say to their employers, hey, I have to leave by 5 p.m. to pick up my kid at daycare. I'm happy to check my email between 8 and 8:30 in the evening for anything urgent that I may have missed because I need to leave early. We need to start rephrasing our emails without apologies. I don't know about you all out there, but I feel like as a working mom, I'm constantly saying sorry. Sorry for my delay. Mom Cozy, you can tell me if I've done it too. Sorry for my delay. Like, oh, sorry for, I didn't get back to you about this. Because we're doing a million things as a working mom. We're getting up in the morning and we're breastfeeding, then we're pumping, then we're packing our bags, we're dropping our kids off, we're getting to work. We're trying to do all the things at work. We're trying to show up for our partner. We're trying to get home and be a good parent again before bedtime. We're trying to log on after bedtime to finalize those emails. We're burning the candle on a lot of ends, right? And we're constantly saying sorry. And I want you to stop saying sorry. Instead, say thank you for your patience. Sorry implies maybe that like you can't handle it when you're back at work, and you can. It just looks different, but you don't need to apologize. You're not doing anything wrong. Thank you for your patience, okay? When it comes to pumping and being back at work, how and when do you need to block your workday for pumping? It is really important to have time in your day to stop to pump. And a lot of workplaces don't get that, especially if you work with a team of men who don't even know what pumping is. Okay. I had a mom recently who was back at work. She worked with mostly men, and her boss was a male, and she had like blocked her pump schedule, but meetings got put over it, or she'd be in a meeting and she needed to get up to go pump. And she felt like people would like look at her kind of like, where is she going? Oh, she's going to pump again. Nobody understood what she was doing. And the pumping room was in another building. Okay, so what, I'm not saying you all have to do this. This mom had confidence though, and she went to her manager and said, hey, I'd like to explain to you why I pump during the day. And can you walk with me so I can show you? And he was like, sure. So she said, 3 times a day, I have to stop to pump. I'm breastfeeding my baby, which means I have to empty my breast. I have to remove the milk for my baby to eat it. And if I don't stop to pump, I can get sick. I can actually get a bacterial infection that would require antibiotics. Like I can get sick. I have to pump. Okay. Then she walked this guy down to the pumping room in the other building, goes, so 3 times a day, I have to walk all the way here. And when I come into this room, I take out all of this stuff. She didn't pump in front of me. I got to assemble all this stuff. And then I have to put it on and I have to pump for 20 minutes. And then I have to put it in these bags. I have to put it in the fridge. And I have to pull myself back together and I have to come back to the meeting. But if I don't do this, I can't feed my baby and it could get really sick, right? And this guy was like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. Like he was mind blown by this, right? So, you might not feel comfortable explaining this to people, but you do deserve the boundary of pumping during your workday. And what does that need to look like? My final thing, a piece of advice I want to give around preparing yourself as you go back to work, which this actually works in so many places. It works with your partner. It works with your in-laws. Like when you're navigating a difficult conversation or you're trying to put a boundary in place to make a change for yourself. I want you to think about where can you be flexible and what are your non-negotiables? Because usually when you think of it like that, you pretty much have like not a lot of non-negotiables and there's more areas where you're willing to be flexible. I already gave an example here. It's a non-negotiable that I have to leave by 5 p.m. to pick my child up because daycare closes. Like they literally lock the doors. I'm willing to be flexible in that because I'm leaving a little bit earlier, I will be coming in a little bit earlier in the morning to make up for that. Or I will be happy to check my email one time in the evening for urgent needs, right? So I'm giving you some ideas of how to think about this. Let me give you one more example just to help it really sink into your brain. And I bet you can relate to this. Tell me in the chat. Those of you who have a newborn at home and you're like, I don't know if I want to have a lot of visitors coming in, right? I'm worried about people touching the baby, holding the baby. I'm tired, I'm recovering. So maybe a non-negotiable for you when you have a newborn at home is that you actually don't want visitors, not helpers, your family members. You don't want visitors holding your baby, right? But maybe you can be flexible that you will allow visitors, but only 2 days a week for these amount of hours. They have to be healthy. And if they wash their hands and wear a mask, you're gonna let them hold the baby, right? So again, just ideas of like where Where can you be flexible as you're navigating boundaries? But for you, like what's important to you? What is your non-negotiable? Is this making sense? Hopefully this is helping people out there. I talked about like burning the candle and like trying to be everything to everybody. And I really want to like call out and normalize that there's no balance when you're a working mom. Let's embrace it. You're never going to feel like you're killing it. Maybe you have a day where you feel like you're killing it, right? But like, it is not possible to be 100% to everyone 100% of the time. When I think about my life, I'm a mom. I have to take care of myself. There's a bucket. I'm a business owner. I'm working. There's a bucket. I have a husband. He's my partner. I got to make time for dates and to make sure he knows I love him still, right? There's a bucket. I have 3 kids that I'm trying to show up for. There's a bucket, right? Think of what are all your buckets? The things that you're trying to like show up for every day, right? And like, you just aren't going to be 100%. You can't put 100% in every bucket every day. That's okay. That's okay. The solution isn't like, I'm going to power through and just keep trying to be everything to everybody. It's actually to take a step back and say like, what does need my attention today? What's calling me this day or this week? And where can I find areas to rest, to recharge myself? You've experienced a major identity shift, becoming a parent. And you may have the same job that you had before you had the baby, but it's going to feel different in so many ways, okay? When I think about my new parents, I think about you as an iPhone, especially when you have a newborn. When I go home at night, I plug my phone in, and in the morning when I wake up, if it stayed plugged in all night, it's 100%. I want you to ask yourself when you wake up in the morning, what battery are you at that day? I'm dead serious, y'all, okay? And if you have a newborn that's waking up 2 or 3 times at night, you're getting unplugged a few times. So you might wake up with a 12-week-old baby and you're about to go back to work and you might say to yourself, I'm not 100%. I feel like my battery is like 60% at best. So in that day, we're acknowledging that. So A, where can I find time to charge, recharge, and rest because I'm 40% down? And B, where am I giving the 60%? Okay, maybe it has to really be at work that day because something really big is going on. So you're going to feel like you're allocating less percentage to your partner or to your kiddo. But if you call out the battery, then you feel less guilt. You feel bad about it, right? I know my working parents out there feel this, and maybe some of you are out there now, but like the day ends and you're like, oh, I feel like I barely showed up for my kids today. You know, I feel like even when I was with them, I didn't give a lot of myself because I was so stressed about work. Or you're back at work and you just feel like you're not getting your projects done. You're not giving yourself 100% because your kids are sick that week. You're like, I really need to be up there for my kids this week. So I want you to identify your battery, decide what it is in the morning. And when you think about your buckets, where do you want to give your energy that day? Because the solution isn't trying to have more battery than you have or power through. Then you're going to feel like crap. You're going to feel like you're not doing anything well. And that's the worst feeling as a parent, right? You can only do so much. And you have to find time to recharge your battery, which is really tricky to do. A lot of my working parents feel bad going to the exercise class or feel bad going out for a walk by themselves. I don't know, I'm getting a thumbs up, right? Because they're like, I've been at work all day. I haven't seen the baby. I need to be with the baby. But when you get home from a work day, and even though you may only have 3 hours till bedtime, I encourage you to find 20 minutes or a half an hour, or go to the workout class and recharge yourself, whatever it is that you're doing, because you maybe will have less time with your baby before bedtime, but the quality of your time is going to feel so much better, right? So these are the things I want you to be thinking about. I also think it's really important to tell your partner what your battery is. My husband and I do this, okay? The other night, Eloise, my 2-year-old, was up a lot in the middle of the night. I have no idea why. She cried, she was up. I kept getting up with her. I was like, what's going on? And so in the morning, I looked at my husband and I said, I'm low on battery. I was up a lot last night. And he was like, oh, I'm good on battery. I didn't even hear her, right? So he's like, I'll get up with the other 2 and I'll make the lunches. I'll step in, right? And so identifying your battery with your partner will help you as well during this time as you figure out like what needs your attention and how can you divide and conquer together. Okay. I always try to save at least 10 minutes at the end to come out and talk to you and answer your questions. This class scratches the surface of so many things that we do inside of NAPS. We have new mom support groups, working mom support groups. We have prenatal classes where we teach this in our prenatal classes to set you up for success. We have content on, like I said, bottle troubles and refusals. We have content on boundaries and going back to work. Like there's so much support inside of our platform. It's an online membership. When you log in, there's over 100 short courses and videos. We do live meetups multiple times during the week. So you can meet up with me once a week live with 30 other parents in the room and just ask questions. We have an Ask a Nurse board where you can post us a question anytime at 1 a.m. and we will answer you, a registered nurse or a nurse practitioner, within 24 hours. They are these small groups where you can meet up, right? So next week we have a working mom group starting. 10 moms are going to be put together. We're going to talk about this stuff in real time. There's so much support inside of Nurture. And through our partnership with Mom Cozy, we're giving you 20% off services and our membership. So I encourage you to check it out. I am going to put the link in the chat. I also did want to try something new with you all today. I'm going to come out for questions, and then I'll come back to our survey to see how you like today's workshop. But I really would love to see you all again. And you all like really have inspired me in our last classes together. I'm going to tell you right now, you're engaged, you ask really good questions, and you're thoughtful. And last week when I taught the class, people said, oh, can I see you again? Or can I do a class with you again? So I wanted to try something in addition to our Mom Cozy 20% off course. I want to offer you all the membership, 30 days for $30. Like, come into the membership. I'm going to try it for the weekend. The code is good until Monday, just to really see if this is going to help anybody out there, because I know you're going to have a lot of questions. If you go to our membership page and you scroll down to the FAQ section, that's where you can find the monthly membership. Try it. 30 days for $30. Come in and see me. Tell me what your pain points are about pumping, breastfeeding, going back to work, like whatever it is that you need. I really want to work with you all. So try that. You'll still have the Mom Cozy discount. I will still be in the Mom Cozy Facebook page answering your questions for free. So like, you're all amazing. You ask brilliant questions. I want to keep helping you. I adore you all. I adore you all. So with that, I'd love to answer your questions. And then we also have a survey for you, and we're going to do giveaways.
Yay. Okay, I'm gonna fire around this. Y'all, it's gonna last just a little bit longer, but if you stick around, you are eligible for our giveaway, which is our breastfeeding energy bags. All right. The question is, at what age can we start using sunscreen on our babies? That is fascinating.
Sure, I love this question. This is actually one of the videos inside of Nurture. All the videos are like 3 minutes long, so you don't have to Google something. The answer is correct. You guys are doing well in the chat. 6 months of age.
They're great.
But let me tell you something. That is not because your baby can't wear sunscreen before 6 months of age. That recommendation is actually because we don't want newborns in direct sunlight, because their skin is incredibly sensitive and they are prone to burn. So we really just want them in a shaded area or with long sleeve clothing on. That being said, though, if you have a 4-month-old or a 5-month-old and you can't avoid direct sunlight, you can put sunscreen on your baby. What I would recommend is using a sunscreen that is really good for sensitive skin. One of my favorites is Blue Lizard. And you want to try it on a patch of their body, like call it their lower back first, just to make sure they don't have a rash or a reaction. And if it does well, then you may put sunscreen on them. But again, that recommendation of 6 months, and you all did great. You did great in the chat here, 6 months, is just because we don't want them in direct sunlight.
Oh, that's great news. There were a couple questions on putting breast milk in the freezer. Is that on day 4 or day 3? And then do you recommend using the trays to put the milk for the freezer tray?
Yeah, there's really cool stuff. So when it comes to freezing breast milk, I have the Mom Cozy bags here. I actually love the Mom Cozy bags. You know why? They're sturdy and they're easy to pour from too. And they have the date and the time. But when it comes to freezing breast milk, there's a lot of cool things you can do out there. There's products out there like trays. You can make cubes of breast milk. You can make popsicles of breast milk. You can freeze breast milk at any time, meaning, let's say you pumped and you weren't going to use that milk anytime soon. You're like, I don't know when I'm going to use this milk. Then just go ahead and bag it and freeze it. Or maybe you're like, I don't know, I might use this breast milk that I pumped. I'm going to put it in the fridge in a bottle. But maybe 4 days goes by and you're like, I never used it, or I'm probably not going to use it. Now I'm going to dump it in a bag and I'm going to freeze it. Now the cubes and the trays are fun because then you can do like little 1 ounce nuggets if you want. So sometimes when you have a bunch of 4 ounce bags frozen and all of a sudden your baby is a little bit bigger and they're older and they're taking more of a bottle, they might take a 5 ounce bottle, but you have all their 4 ounce bags frozen. So now you can pull out a 4-month bag and you can grab your 1 ounce ice cube that you made and mix it together. Does that make sense? But I want to be clear that you can mix breast milk throughout the day. Or if I had breast milk from yesterday in the fridge and breast milk from today in the fridge, you can put it in the same bag and freeze it. You just want to date it to the oldest date, right? So I'm going to date it from yesterday. And you want to write how many ounces is on the bag because breast milk expands when it's frozen. So if I freeze 4 ounces and I grab it in a couple months from now, it's going to look really big, like there's 6 ounces inside. So you just want to know how much you're defrosting. So those are some quick tips that come to mind.
Great. I want to talk, and somebody shared kind of about a comfortable situation. They're in the pumping room and people just keep barging on in.
Oh my goodness.
Horrible. I know it's not right. But what do you do in these uncomfortable situations? As a mom, do you just confront the person? Should I contact HR? I mean, that's
Yeah.
just unacceptable.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts?
And you know what? I bet I threw you all off talking about boundaries in this presentation. I bet you thought it was mostly going to be lists and schedules and tactics, but that's why it's in there because that does unfortunately happen. That's unacceptable. If there is first of all, everyone deserves a place to pump. Your workplace should provide a clean, comfortable place for you to pump that is private. It'd be nice if the door locked. It sounds like your door doesn't lock, this person. So first step would be I would have your HR department make a sign that says,
And they've made a sign
they've
already.
made a sign.
A
Okay,
woman has made the sign.
so that's inappropriate. This is
Inappropriate.
absolutely something that you should go to HR for. And I would talk to HR about it. They need to put a lock on the door. They need to not only make sure the sign is being respected, but follow-up needs to be done with people who are coming into the room. That's really unprofessional and inappropriate. It can be hard to have these conversations. NAPS does consulting on a corporate level. So companies will hire us to come in and look at their policies for return to work and look at their breastfeeding rooms and make recommendations to like make stuff like that better. But yeah, that's wildly inappropriate, and you absolutely need to talk to somebody that is putting a boundary in place that is going to require a difficult conversation. So if you don't feel like you can do that with your manager or the person themselves, you do need to bring in a third party like HR to help you. And I'm going to drop the link in the chat for the corporate programming. If anybody wants to put NAPS in touch with your HR, and we will handle them for you.
Thank you so much, Emily. And I want to just encourage all of you, if something doesn't feel right to you, you do not have to put up with it. You know, you are doing the most for your child, the most for yourself is feeding them. You should never feel sorry for that, never feel ashamed about that. And it's hard to say in the moment because I've certainly been there as well. But, you know, sometimes it just takes just thinking about, you know, what is your why? And your why is your baby. And if you think about your precious little baby, you never want to compromise anything for them. And sometimes like thinking about that can help you maybe get the confidence, but please don't ever feel like anybody has to run you over. You do have rights. The Pump Act came out in 2022. That is only applicable to employees with 50 plus employees. There's definitely some gaps in it, and I know there's a lot of advocacy work around that, making sure it extends. So look it up. It's called the Pump Act. So understand what your rights are for. And so yeah, that's just really my word of encouragement. And thank you guys for your questions. I know we didn't get to a lot, but I encourage you join our Facebook group. Ask these questions
Yeah,
again and take
I'll be there.
take advantage of this amazing deal. Emily has offered 30 days for $30 using the code Emily30. We will share.
Do you want me to share
And
your quick quiz too before we do the giveaways?
oh, yes, yes. This is the survey. Please, everybody take this. These surveys is the reason why we can continue to provide this wonderful programming for you. So if you liked us, let us know. If you didn't like us, let us know. So here's the QR code. I'm going to leave that up there because guess what we're going to do? Our favorite, we are giving
That's
away
smart.
10 breastfeeding energy bags as well as 10 one-year NAPS memberships from Emily. So somebody called me out in the survey last week and they're like, this is suspect. How are you picking these people? What is the eligibility? And then what I do, y'all, I literally just
Here.
scroll and it stops. So I'm not trying to stack this. There is nothing shady going on. I'm literally just scrolling and where it stops, where it stops. All right. So no one, please get mad at me. I hope you win. And I will ask if you have won before, please be honest, just so we can pass that gift along to another mom. 10 people are going to win today. So if you win, type here in the chat. You will not get a prize unless you type here. And then email me at mcp@momcozy.com that you won today. All right, here we go. All you have to do is be here to win. So I'm going to go ahead, open the list of names, and round we go. Number 1 is Crystal Galvin. Crystal, please type here if you are here. Crystal Galvin. And Emily, keep
I'm
an eye on the
watching.
chat so I
There she
know.
is. She's here.
All right, Crystal, mcp@momcozy.com. Number 2, I'm scrolling up to the top. Diana Ross. I'm not going to pronounce this right, but it's Gecobe. Gisobe, perhaps. Diana Ross Gisobe. Please type you're here if you're here.
There she is.
All right. All right. Next up, going to the bottom of the list, we have Ishta Ahmed. Ishta Ahmed, number 3, lucky number 3. Going to the middle of the list, Frida
There she is.
Flores.
She's here.
You're lucky number 4. Frida, if you're here, let us know. All right. Lucky number 5 is going to be Caitlin Todd. Caitlin, are you with us? Please type here.
There she
Good
is.
one. Is she here? Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. Elisa Houston is lucky number 6. Elisa, please let us know if you're here. Lucky number 7 is Fallon Stacy. Fallon. All right. Yes, everyone will get a link to the recording next Saturday. All right. The 8th one, we have Sarah Oros. Sarah, are you with us?
There she
Sarah.
is.
Okay, Sarah. Lucky number 9, 2 more. You may be you. Scroll. Stop. Natalie Chan. Natalie Chan, are you with us?
There she
She's
is.
here. Okay. The last one. I'm gonna scroll extra long. I'm literally closing my eyes and stopping. Martha Tasiopoulos. Martha Tasiopoulos. All right. Yes, correct. Email me at mcp@momcozy.com. Please take advantage of this NAPS membership,
I'm going to
y'all.
show you where to find it just because we really advertise. When you come to our website and you want to become a member, you'll see a lot about our annual membership. But what I did for you is different. If you come down, I'm going to give you I want you to try the month, just a month,
Month long. Okay.
come in and hang out with me, right? So if you come to our FAQ section, this is where you can find our monthly membership. And you'll all get it 30 days for $30. The code is good till Sunday at midnight.
All right, Sunday at midnight, you'll get a reminder email. And everybody, you are going to get the recording. If you would like to view the last 2 recordings, go to this playlist The last two recordings are there. We are going to release the recording for this week, and you will receive the follow-up email next Saturday. And Emily, somebody had a question about the bottle.
Yep. Let me get that for you.
Okay.
Let me get that for you. So this is the bottle troubles. This is a one-time course on our website. It is included in the membership, just so you know. So you're actually better off doing the 30 for 30.
30 for 30.
$30. Because then you can get it for free and you can use the Ask a Nurse board to talk to me. The one-time course is $49 right there.
Awesome. So our final course in the series is next Friday, and it is going to be infant sleep.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Well, if you think breastfeeding was my jam, wait till we talk about sleep. I love talking about sleep and feeding. So
we're going to be
I
talking
can't
about
wait to
sleep.
see you all soon.
We may be sleep deprived out there. All right. Well, everybody, please tell a friend to join us. If you know somebody that needs this information, please invite them, send them the registration link. We want to make sure everyone is getting this information. And with that, I am going to close. Thank you, everybody, for your attendance. Thank you, Emily, so much for your amazing presentation. And with that, we will see you next week. Bye, everybody.
See you next Friday.